Hello, my name is Stephen Richardville. This is Advanced Statistics, Fall 2023. And today we're doing assignment 2.1 from Module 2 regarding a t-test for the sample data provided, the school-wide sample data. So we're going to perform a t-test assuming that the assumptions for performing that t-test are met. We're looking at regions 1 and 5, as you can see here, for the statewide school district data provided by the course using the SPSS program. This is going to be a little bit tricky. When I go to the SPSS statistics, typically, before you perform a t-test, you would look to see if you've got the right number of samples in the group, the right N value, and you'd also look at the homogeneity of variance. Briefly, if I might just look at those real quick, you can look at right here, compare means and proportions, even if I go to the one-way analysis of variance. If I look at enrollment data, which is what we're doing for the region, and my options here, we're going to do the homogeneity of variance test. If I go ahead and look at what this is going to be for my enrollment, it's a little bit tricky because we're meant in this assignment to assume that that all the assumptions are met for the t-test, but the significance up here that's much less than 0.05 is a little bit of a concern. This down here would suggest that there is a significant difference between the means of the two groups for the enrollment data. Right here, this number really should be above 0.05. And we're going to look at something else too. So if I go back now, I'm going to go ahead and close that. The point is, in this assignment, we're supposed to consider that the assumptions are met, although it appears to be that they're not. And I guess that's okay for this assignment. I cancel this, close this. Okay, so if I go back to analyze, and now I go to what we're actually doing for this piece, I'm going to go ahead and compare means and proportions. I'm going to do the independent samples t-test. I'm looking at enrollment for the region as the group variable, and I'm going to go ahead and define these groups as just 1 and 5. I want to look at region 1 and region 5 for my two different groups. We're going to check that, make sure everything's good here. That looks good. And click OK. And what this is going to do is take me to the t-test. So again, here are the means: 2,353, 987. Those would appear to be significantly different. There's a significant difference, but it's a little bit tricky here because when you do the independent t-test, I'm really looking for a value right here for significance bigger than 0.05, but you can see how this number is smaller than 0.05. If this number is bigger than 0.05, then we assume that equal variances are assumed, and therefore, when I look over here, the two-sided p-test you would hope would be smaller than 0.05. So again, this number here, the 0.011, should be greater than 0.05 if equal variances are assumed, and then my two-sided p-test should be less than 0.05, meaning that would be significant. This number here is a little bit tricky because the 0.107 suggests that there's not a significant difference between the two. The null hypothesis is accepted, that there's no significant difference. But the fact that this one's a little bit tricky because this number here, and the fact that if you look at the N value here being 23, the N value should be greater than 30. So when you're doing a t-test, ideally your N values are both bigger than 30. Region 5 is a problem. And then you would hope that here your significance is bigger than 0.05. That's a bit of an issue. So it appears as though equal variances are not assumed. And in that case, then there would be a significant difference between the two. But if I were to go straight off of this assumption is okay, then the two-sided p-test 0.1 tells me that there is no significant difference. I need a number less than 0.05. So a little bit tricky on this week's assignment, but I hope that makes sense for how we're reading the t-test. If we're going to assume that the assumptions are made and assume that everything, that the equal variances are assumed, then this number 0.107 for my p-test is actually too high. It needs to be less than 0.05 for it to be significant, therefore it's insignificant. But because of the n value and the fact that this is too small, we do have a concern for whether or not it was whether or not the t-test was appropriate in the first place. Thank you.